Dallas Councilmember Paula Blackmon, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So, as you know, the 10 ballot propositions, A through J. Why do you think this is so important for the city and residents?
We need to invest in our city, plain and simple. We have older and aging infrastructure. We have infrastructure that doesn't meet our needs. And we need to keep that going, because if we're going to grow as a city, if we're going to grow as a region, if we're going to attract young folks to come to our city, we have to invest in that. And as you see, there are 10 propositions here that shows those key investments.
And you support all of them?
I do.
And what happens if one or multiple don't pass? Then what happens, do you think?
I think what we'll do is look at those needs that are in that bucket and reassess to get it done, because each of them are needed. The infrastructure for housing, needed. The infrastructure for flooding, needed. The infrastructure for our IT, needed. So I think what that does is actually put a strain on us as policymakers looking at our budget, because we're still going to have those needs and we're going to have to meet them.
And you were talking a little bit about infrastructure. The biggest slice of the pie is the streets.
Yes, sir.
And it always is, seemingly,
always is.
right? Why is that?
Well, we have an interesting weather patterns, right? So it gets really hot, then it gets really cold, and it breaks up that the pavement and all the asphalt that goes with it. And because this, if you look at our way of doing business, if you will, at the city, we did that. We issued bonds that way back when. We're trying to get out of that now. We're trying to actually put it more with our general fund dollars. But we're still having our needs. So that means that we're going to have to borrow money to meet those needs. You drive in my district, District 9, East Dallas, it's a lot. And Jack, what we also need to look at is how do we reimagine our streets? Because a lot of people don't want 6-lane roads anymore. We need to have safe streets that have pedestrian connections, micromobility, mass transit. So what we're also seeing is people saying, you know what, I don't want to be in my car all the time. I want a bike trail. I want a sidewalk. And so we need to meet those needs as well, and that's expensive.
I noticed a couple of streets. I think Peak Street is one of those on the list to be a complete redo, it seems like, the bike lanes, et cetera, that you were just talking about. And then one at Harwood, I think, down through near Fair Park. So there are a whole bunch of those.
There are a whole bunch. We're just talking about mine and D9, and
Yeah.
mine are resurfacing, mine are wanting sidewalks. Mine are just need to be maintained.
And then parks
Yes,
and
sir.
rec. There's a lot on there from the big ticket
Over
items.
$345 million.
Yeah, you got Dallas Zoo improvements on there.
You got White Rock Lake dredging,
Yeah.
that we are using the $20 million to then leverage our federal dollars. But as we've seen, people care about that lake. And since the pandemic, people want to be out in a public park. So we want to make sure that it's healthy, that the ecosystem around it is healthy, as well as the water.
Public facilities, public safety facilities.
Correct.
Police training facility.
Correct.
$50 million. It's the largest single ticket item, I believe, on
It
there.
is.
Why is this so key?
Well, we train right now our officers, 18 months is when we hire them until they get on the street. And what we're finding out is training does matter, because when they go through a simulation with targets and how to de-escalate an issue or a person or a situation, they need to have that training. You don't want to just put a badge on somebody and say good luck. You want to make sure they are trained and that they're trained in the state of the art. And then we hold them accountable because we've given them that training. And so what we also can do is open it up to our suburbs and say, you know what, instead of taking our officers, maybe we help train yours, and then you can then use them. And so we can keep and maintain our officer account.
I spoke with one group, Cop Stop City.
Yes.
They oppose it, as
They
you
do.
know. And so they said to me that they would like to see not as much money spent on it. They don't think a new facility is needed. They said just fix up the existing one.
Well, we rent that existing one, so it's probably not a good business model. And we're partnering with UNT Dallas, which is a university that we already do partnerships with. So it makes sense to then work with our partners, and maybe what happens is we find a private philanthropist that can then offset the 50 million that's coming from the state, because they're already doing enough, but then we can then use that money for something else in public safety, because every fire station, every police station needs new HVAC, new roofs, etc.
And talk to me a little bit, because you mentioned it before, as far as how much should be as part of a bond versus how much should just come out of the general budget, the
Correct.
general revenue budget. I mean, is the city really taking steps to do that so that this doesn't need to be in a bond and down the road?
And I do think we are. We are looking at how we are spending those general fund dollars. It's not easy. It's political will. It is discipline, right? To actually not buy this, but buy that. And the essence the essence of strategy is sacrifice. And so that means some things may have to be sacrificed in order to get this done. But that's a conversation that we have as a body at budget time. And I know that some of the allocations are very close to the line of what the 15-year minimum, right, of a capital shelf life. But that doesn't mean that we don't have needs that need to be met. And so I do think the city is looking at using those general fund dollars in a better way, but it's not going to be overnight. It's going to be multiple budget cycles and a few bond cycles to where we can really get to a real pristine process.
I spoke with Council Member Kara Mendelson, who supports, four of the biggies. We talked about streets, parks, public safety, and IT, but she opposes those as it relates to flood control and also housing, saying there are other ways that we can pay for this instead of putting out a bond. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that, yes, we can float bonds for our stormwater, but they're not at a capacity now in which we can do that. We've started collecting fees, but we still have needs. I have two of these projects from the flooding in my portfolio. And one of them is very close to being issued, where they're going to have to take on flood insurance. And it's not even in a low part of the city. I mean, we have real issues with flooding, especially in East Dallas, where we have lots of creeks. So I say it's a small amount to invest in people's quality of life in their neighborhood. When you've got storms that come through and it could wipe out your backyard. It is creeping up to their foundation in some cases. We have to do something, because it is our responsibility to make sure that our floodways are not harming other people's private property. And it is definitely an issue that people take seriously, and it's one that's not going to be fixed tomorrow. But we have to take measures now to get it done, and it's a small investment to make sure that we keep private property safe.
How would you explain to Dallas voters, as far as, because there's money for homelessness, there's money for housing, there's money for the arts, there's money for economic development. Why are those so crucial in your mind that people should invest in those through a bond?
So we bonds are used for investing in the infrastructure, the big systems that we that maintain a building. And what we found in 2020, 2021, were people were ready to come together, whether it be at a play or a musical or a symphony, but also at their libraries. They were trying to log on so they could work online or have a little place where they could come and do a meeting. And so what you're seeing now is us improving those structures in their neighborhoods. So it's important that we always have a place for people to go. And I believe that if we don't invest in those infrastructures that we've already built, they will crumble. And then what are we going to do? So we do need to invest in them, and we need to spend the money, and we need to make sure that people can have a place to congregate in their neighborhood and not have to drive to another part of the city, but they can actually be where they are.
My last question to you is, you know, when talking with Councilmember Mendelson, she said Dallas has the highest tax rate of any large city except for El Paso. And she expressed concerns just about how much debt the city has. She says $8 billion. What do you say to that? I mean, you know, because people are going to be, you know, listening to your interview, they're going to be listening to what she has to say and what other people are saying. And what do you say to that as far as the debt and why this is still something that the residents should be?
Well, this is within our capacity to borrow, and there's no new taxes that will be levied to a homeowner or a property owner.
Does that mean rate?
It does not mean rate, but that means that there's not an added tax because of our ability not to pay, or we have to increase our ability to take in money. The tax rate, we've been knocking it down every year. And the issue is that cities are not immune to costs. They're going up too. Insurance costs are going up. Costs for salaries. We want to retain and train the best of anybody. We also have just general products, right? Our asphalt, our steel, anything that we buy, we're seeing an increase as well. So our rate continues to come down. Now, as it affects the ratio, the debt ratio, that is coming down as well too. Now, could it come down more? That would be a very different strategy and discussion at council during the budget season, and that means that we would probably have to make cuts. So I'm not real inclined to go with $8 billion and oh my gosh, we should stop. I'm inclined to say, okay, now let's take out, let's build what we can, let's build the pie, because if people are moving into North Texas, they need to pick Dallas. And that means we've got to give them a place to live. And we've got to give them a reason to be here. And with that, then we start working with, as we build out our city, then in building the pie, then start bringing down the tax rate, the ratio. But until then, we've got to keep investing in our needs.
And you're saying this investment will help the city attract people,
right?
Not only to North Texas, but to the city of Dallas.
The city of Dallas. We need them to come to the city of Dallas. Dallas is built up. And so we need infrastructure improvements if we want to build a little more in key areas. And so with this little bit of money, I think there's an ROI that will benefit our city as a whole. And then, I mean, we are looking at budgeting. We are looking at what are some items in the budget that may not be supposed to be for us. And we need to have those hard discussions and start slashing them and start putting them to core services. Fine with that, but we need to have that discussion amongst 15 in a budget cycle. Right now, we have a bond that we need, $1.25 million. It's very heavy infrastructure. It's investments that we've needed for a long time. And we're leveraging a lot more money. So to say that, you know what, we're not going to do this means that we're leaving money on the table. And I don't think our taxpayers and our constituents want that.
Anything else you'd like to say?
I just hope people go and vote on May 4th for the 2024 bond package, all 10 props.
Dallas Councilmember Paula Blackmon, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.